the fantasy position everybody loves. Let's get into it.
Let's go.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Fantasy After Dark, Dynasty After Dark. If you heard the cold open, I was busting up. I was trying not to laugh so hard. But we're your hosts, Calvin Timms and Dale Terry. But yeah, thank you for checking out the video. If you're new, if you're one of our returning listeners, we appreciate you guys. And I'm excited. We're going to be talking about the position that everybody loves for fantasy. And that's going to be the rookie wide receivers or the year two wide receivers. You know, some of these guys, they disappointed last year. Some of them have a little bit of upside, and we're going to get into it, and we're going to talk about all these guys. We just dropped our video on the year two running backs the other day, and you guys kind of really loved that video more than we were kind of expecting, so we appreciate that for everybody that's checked that out. If you haven't yet, go listen to it and give it a like, thumbs up, whatever. Just appreciate it and helps us out. So while we're on that subject, if you can, just subscribe to the channel for all the content that we're going to be putting out there, and like this video if you like this kind of content. Leave a comment down below and let us know what your favorite fantasy position is. And yeah, how's it going, Dale?
Hey, I'm doing really good. I am gearing up to get down and dirty talking about these year two wideouts.
Perfect.
And I know you are too. So it's some of our favorites, and some are a little lackluster.
Yeah, some we're really taking the After Dark to a new level on this
After Dark.
But I love it. So that's the kind of dirty humor that I can get on board with, man. It's a good time. But yeah, no, we're going to be talking about the receivers, and we're going into the Memorial weekend, so hopefully you guys are having a good time. Some rookie training camps are going on for those guys. Maybe we'll do a video here soon. I think this one's going to get broken up into two just because there's so many year two receivers. Dude, this is ridiculous. We were going through just chronologically on draft order, right? Marvin Mims was the 8th wide receiver drafted. It's just nuts how many guys were taken last year. And that's not even getting to guys like Puka or some of the other, Tank Dells and some of those guys. So there's a lot of young receivers. It feels like every single year. But yeah, we're going to get into them. But yeah, we got to talk about some of these rookies that are going through training camp and killing it. And some of them are underperforming like usual. And yeah, it's always a fun time. It's the rumor season, right?
Oh yeah, it definitely is. Like so like that rumor mill runs as quick as it can. This time of the off season, I've seen headlines of Caleb Williams throwing interception after interception in minicamp.
A rough day, guys.
A rough day. I'm like, dude, give me a break. It's like day 2. Come on.
Who cares?
Yeah,
it's training camp,
honestly,
man.
Yeah. Honestly, who cares?
That's point? What I was listening to a podcast the other day, and this is the kind of stuff that annoys me. It's because it's so contradictory, right? And people don't even realize that, I get it. We're all human, right? We all have cognitive dissonance, right? Where we don't even realize what our foibles and our flaws are, right? For the most part. But a guy was talking about Trey Lance, right? And it's so bad because he's terrible because he hasn't gotten on-field reps. Like, we don't know if he can ever be good because he never got on-field reps. I'm like, okay. Why did he not get on field reps, right? Because he wasn't able to produce well. But you hate the guy because he was bad in practice. It's like, does practice matter? Because you're saying that, Trey Lance has thrown the ball a lot in the last 3 years. So you're completely disregarding everything he's done in practice for 3 years, right? While only counting that as bad for him. It's like, dude, you just don't like Trey Lance. It's fine. It's fine. I get it. But I'm just like, you can't have it both ways. He can't be terrible in practice, but he's not throwing the ball. Like, is he getting reps? Is he not getting reps? Pick one, right? So it's just, yeah, it's crazy how people just, dude. If we ever do it, leave a comment. Just call us out on it, because I'll be the first to admit that I have it as well. But it's just like, it's frustrating sometimes. It's definitely frustrating. But all right, you got any plans for the weekend?
Um, Not really. Just probably gonna stay home and deal with the family. That's about all I got going on.
There you go. Good old times. Supposed to rain all weekend, which kind of sucks, but
Yep. It's gonna be horrible. It's gonna be a lot of severe weather. So, buckle up in the Midwest.
yay. Hopefully a tornado doesn't come through town and it's gonna be good
Don't be
times.
saying that.
I will say, and we'll get to the football in just 1 second. All these other podcasts, they have these openings where they just talk about dumb shit forever. So I'm gonna do it for once, right?
Fair
Before I moved to Van Wert, Ohio, right? Before I moved here, I heard it was Tornado Alley. Like they had tornadoes all the time. And ever since I've moved here, there's been like one tornado in the entire decade since Megan.
There's been a lot near us. So
Near
like,
us, but south, right? Usually south.
South and north of us. We've been very lucky to
I
not have
know.
any.
They say
anything, so.
they say there's a rumor, right, that we have a ton of windmill farms around us, right?
It's the vortex theory.
Yeah, dude.
Started. I'm already on top of it.
Well, you're on top of this. All you guys listening out there, there's a theory that all these wind farms are blowing the bad weather south and north of us. They're like saying, screw you guys. Have all our tornadoes. We're going to be safe.
I don't think you want to tell Greenfield, Iowa that.
Yeah, all of our
because a couple of those got destroyed, and it was not very pretty.
All of our Coldwater and Salina listeners, I apologize, but no, it's not bad. I there's some use to these wind farms. I'm just saying, there's benefits. There's benefits other than the energy, right? So
right.
All right, no more fooling around here. Let's get into these wide receivers. We're gonna start again. We're gonna go through it in chronological order, not fantasy finished. Otherwise, we'd be talking about Puka Nacua first, like the dude that literally set the world on fire. Instead, we're gonna talk about Jackson Smith-Njigba. He is 22 years old. Had kind of a rough year one. 93 targets, 63 catches, only 630 yards. Not great. 4 touchdowns. The one thing that's kind of really odd to me when you talk about Jackson Smith-Njigba, he was drafted as the wide receiver 3 behind DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett in a Pete Carroll team, right? Where Pete Carroll's whole thing is, I don't care if you were the number 1 overall pick, you will earn every snap on this team. And I really like Jackson Smith-Njigba, and I think he'll be really good long term, but there's no world where he's going to beat out Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf in year 1 for snaps, right? You couple that with the fact that he broke his hand in preseason, right? I think it was like week 1 of preseason. Didn't get the cast off until like week 3 of the actual NFL season. And people are just like, oh, he's a bust. He's terrible. It's like, we expected him to be bad because he's number 3 guy and he broke his hand. Like, you kind of need that to catch the ball. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand what people really wanted to see from him. Like, I get it. He ended the season on kind of a sour note. One catch for 12 yards, 3 catches for 14. They used him a lot underneath, but you have a new system. They got rid of Shane Waldron, which it looks like Jackson Smith-Njigba wasn't a big fan of in all of his post-season interviews and everything like that. So maybe they're going to try and incorporate him a little bit more this year. But what are our thoughts on JSN, and how do you feel about him after a year?
I think he's gonna be fine. I think it was a weird year anyway for the Seahawks. It was coming off the success of last year, with Geno Smith and what they had, and then coming into this past year, it was really interesting kind of what they did with him. He was injured quite a bit. I'm not worried about him. I know I'm a homer. I'll admit that, but like, I'm not super worried about it. I know for him, he's a long-term hold for me. I'm holding him if I have him because I know he won't return the value.
Right.
At all. It's not even close because like most people drafted him like 104 to 105, like maybe 106
in a super flex,
range.
right? But in non-super flex, he was like the 101. Well, him or Bijan. Like, some people took him over Bijan though. If you really wanted a receiver, some people did take him that highly.
Right.
So 101 or 102 in non-super flex league. So he had a lot of expectations. So he did kind of under-deliver, but at the same time, again, it was expected, right?
Yeah. I expected it. I mean, there are some managers that have lofty expectations and don't always take everything into account. So,
Right.
I think he did fine. It was a pretty injury laden season. Plus, it was just a weird year. So I think he's going to have a new start with a new OC and a new head coach, and I think it's going to be a little bit better and a little bit more consistent. This
The only thing I'm a little scared of is if the new head coach, and again, I forget his name. I need to figure out his name. But if they establish the Baltimore style offense over here, which it's not necessarily that that's going to happen, but they like to establish it, right? With the defensive, we talked about this with Zach Charbonnet and a little bit on Kenneth Walker last episode. And if they do try to establish it a little bit more, it does scare me because I think JSN is more of a Michael Thomas style receiver where he needs a little bit more volume to be really fantasy relevant. And if they're trying to establish it a ton, 4 for 48, it's not great, right? Like it's not terrible, and you're doing 4 for 4 for 48 yards. You're doing your job, but at the same time, you're not really doing much for fantasy football. So it is, and the second major concern I do have, and I was looking through his game log, he never broke 63 yards last year, which it's a little concerning.
I feel a lot of it was scheme.
I agree.
It was a scheme last year. It was Pete Carroll. Like there was a lot of factors against him. So
Right.
I'm not super concerned. I mean, I'm not feeling great about having Jackson Smith, but
Right.
I'm not feeling horrible.
Right. Yeah, I just mean that I was expecting him to bust off a few more big runs because I do think he's athletically good enough to do that. And the fact that we didn't see that is just a little concerning. Like, why didn't it happen? Like, when you have, about a 10 yard per per catch average, it's not great, but
I think part of it too, when he was at Ohio State, like he was like all his last year there, he was having the hamstring.
right.
And those soft tissue injuries take a long time. Plus, he broke his hand, so like
Right.
he had a lot of rehabbing to do. And
Right.
I'm not excusing these not sexy numbers, but like they're not like great, but they're not horrible. Like they're not bad. And I feel he's gonna be a little bit more part of the offense.
So would you be trying to sell him right now, or would you
I,
be?
I would be trying to buy him
Would you?
because
Okay.
I
So
I, I, I I feel he's cheaper than what he was last year. I would be, let's see, flex. I would probably be okay with like
he's wide receiver 24 right now. So,
okay.
um, you know, obviously that's roughly in terms of value. James Cook, T.J. Hawkinson, Jonathan Brooks, Rashad White. I agree. I think he's kind of a value here. Um, that's not bad.
That's
107 to 108 pick range.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was about to say. Like a 108 is probably where I would be really really comfortable because that's kind of where a tier break is anyways in
Right.
most super flex league.
Lad
So
McConkey or JSN?
I I would probably say Lad because he has the far superior. Unfortunately, I mean I really like JSN, I really do, but like
See,
I
that's where
don't.
I'd probably take
Yeah,
JSN just because I think he's the better talent. But
yeah,
so maybe he is a massive buy if you still believe in him, like I do. Like I'd rather have JSN than Lad McConkey. So if you can get him for a late first, like I think it's worth it just to take the
yep,
stab on it. But I can also understand people wanting to pull the cord. So
yep.
and speaking of pulling the cord, we might as well just get into this next guy, Quentin Johnston, who for the
Someone
LA
Calvin, someone Calvin loved and
dude,
adored.
he's gonna be fine. Like let's be
Loved
real.
and adored Calvin. It
Let's be
was
real. He'll be fine.
singing his praises.
He'll be fine. So here's the thing, Quentin Johnson, and I'm gonna keep my rant short here. And the biggest thing here is just that I'm just pulling up Justin Herbert really quickly just to see because Justin Herbert got banged up. So Quentin Johnston drafted in the first round, very raw wide receiver. Nobody was really expecting that. Was drafted to be the number 3 behind Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. Mike Williams gets injured early in the year, and everyone goes, oh, well, Quentin Johnston's supposed to be the number 2 now. And he ran a lot of air routes, right? He did not get a lot of targets while he was out there. He didn't really play a ton of snaps early in the season. And the biggest thing, so a lot of people are completely disregarding the fact that the head coach, what's his name? Do you remember his name?
Brandon Staley.
Brandon Staley. He was fighting for his job, and he lost. He lost the fight. He got fired. The GM got fired. Everybody got fired for an underperforming, yet again, Chargers team. Coaching matters, guys. It matters so much. Kellen Moore is not a good offensive coordinator. I'm standing behind that, and we saw it last year. He was not able to scheme his way out of a wet paper bag, and they just did not set Quentin Johnston up for success. Brandon Staley did not want to go to Quentin Johnston in pressure situations because if he fails, Brandon Staley has the opportunity to get fired. So he did not want to go to him in important situations, which I can understand. I get it. I do understand that. But he did not get a lot of looks early in the game. Like, first 4 games, he had 27, 15, 24, and 51. That was a snap share. He did not get on the field very often. Mike Williams gets injured, and he starts to play a lot more. Doesn't get a lot of targets, though, and that's the problem everyone's pointing to. He did not get a lot of targets. But I heard this stat, and, at the end of the year, Justin Herbert got injured. They kind of shut the whole team down. Like, why risk them for, why put them out there and let them get killed, essentially, right? But when Justin Herbert and Quentin Johnston played, after Mike Williams went down, which was around week 5 for the rest of the season, and before Justin Herbert got injured, Quentin Johnston was on pace for a whole season, on pace for about 75 receptions for 750 yards. Not amazing, not, record breaking.
Solid.
That's good for a rookie
rookie
wide receiver. Like, we just talked about JSN, right? And JSN had 63 catches in 17 games for 630 yards. And you can say, oh, well, JSN was the number 3 where Quentin Johnston was the number 2. But again, he was raw. There's not a lot of chemistry with Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert was planning to have Mike Williams and Keenan Allen all year long. So it's like, give this guy a chance. Like, I don't understand why people are completely writing him off. And that's the only thing I don't understand. Like, I can understand being worried about it. I understand that. But the dude's 22 years old, and he's already wide receiver 60. He was the number 2 pick last year. And people have completely written him off for a very weird year, right? So that's my whole take on Quentin Johnston. I'm not going to beat the dead horse here, but it's just, I don't understand the thought process that goes into it because he didn't get a lot of targets. So it's his fault. Like, the coaching staff sucked. What do we want, guys? Like, the coaching staff was terrible. You have to take that into account.
Yeah. I have 2 words only. I'm out. I don't want any Quentin Johnston on my team. Calvin Love's
dude, he's so cheap now. Like, that's the thing.
I agree. He is very cheap. I very much agree with that. And he can be a sneaky buy because of that.
Like, you can get him
really
or
like that, but
him or Romeo Doubs, him or Cortland Sutton, him or the 302. Like,
right.
What are we doing here? A first round wide receiver for the 302.
With that. I don't disagree with that. But like, if you're the Quentin Johnston owner, like, I'm not saying he's Traylon Burks level bust here. I'm not saying that quite yet. I'm not saying that, but like,
well, Burks got injured. Like, he just never could play,
true.
right?
That's true. But like, it's not feeling right.
I get it. And I'm not saying that Quentin Johnston is a guaranteed stud, right? No. I just think that people are completely writing him off way too soon. And again, it was a bad coaching staff that literally got them fired. Now they have a new coaching staff, and they literally shipped out every wide receiver ahead of him except for Josh Palmer. Like, Josh Palmer might actually be a sneaky kind of ad. They added Ladd McConkey in the second round, if I remember right? Top of the second.
Yeah. He's picked like 35 or something.
Right. So, he doesn't have a lot of competition. He could, if he's good enough, and you've seen all these glowing headlines from coaches saying, this guy's definitely got the mindset and he can do it. Last year, he didn't have everything kind of right mentally, and he's kind of fixed it in this offseason. Like, I just don't understand why people think that players can't get better. Like that,
Yeah, no,
for me, it's just
and I
the
agree with that.
pessimism, right?
Yeah, and I get it. At cost,
He's
he's a good
amazing at
stab.
cost.
He's a good stab. I don't really have a list of I don't want to draft players, but
Right.
I don't really want him on my squad because I feel he's a right.
He's a risk. He's definitely a risk. Don't hear what I'm not saying.
Because I feel he's a roster clogger.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel he is right now, and it feels bad. Like I feel bad to say that, but
Right.
that's kind of where I'm feeling this trending because not all of these first round wide receivers that we're going to talk about are going to hit.
Right.
2 out of the 4 are probably going to hit.
Yeah, and
So
again, I'm not saying that he's going to be a must-have, but it's just like, guys, just
I
cool,
cost, I get
cool,
it. Yeah.
slow down
I'm
a little bit. Just
yes,
slow
yes.
down. Let's see
No,
what he can
I
do this
agree.
year.
At cost, I think he is a buy. I don't want him. Personally,
Right.
I'm just telling you, at cost, it's fantastic. It all looks good.
Right.
I don't want him on my
Like him or Burton. I'd rather have Jermaine Burton, which
Jermaine
Burton's
Burton
kind
all
of
day,
going
every
up
day.
a
Yeah.
little bit in value, which
He
kind
is
of
a
sucks,
little
right,
bit.
dude? He's going to be like
Well,
2.4 before we know it.
I know it's gonna be really gross. So him or Roman Wilson.
I'd rather have. Oh, dude, it's close. It is close, but that's
It
not
is.
even he's not even in that realm of value. Unfortunately, Roman Wilson is still he's valued at the 2.7, which is crazy. It's just what are we doing here, guys? What are we doing? Wide receiver 60. He could literally be like a top 24 wide receiver this year. Good. Dale doesn't believe. All right. Let's go to the next guy. Zay Flowers, drafted by the Baltimore Ravens last year.
My sweet baby boy, Zay Flowers. I was singing his praises early last year. I'm taking this win a little bit. I saw.
Kind
yeah.
of.
Hey. We were both on the bandwagon. I was on first. It's okay.
No, you definitely were higher on Zay Flowers than me, but so the reason why I say kind of is, decent rookie year, 77 catches for 850 yards, 5 touchdowns. But here's my problem, right?
What's your problem, Calvin?
What's his ceiling?
It's probably his rookie year, and that's why
Right.
I love Zay Flowers. I love Zay Flowers, but I'm gonna try to see what I can get for him this offseason. So I would be shopping him.
Right. So he's a sell for me as well. And again, the talent is there, and they kind of went to him a little bit more in the playoffs.
In the postseason, yeah. Yep.
Until the dude kind of what was the game? Who were they playing? The Bills, I think it was.
It was a Kansas City game, I think, when he fumbled and stuff
dude
like
had
that.
He had the worst probably 10-minute stretch of his career.
I felt so bad for I felt so bad for the kid.
He fumbled the ball
in that moment.
He fumbled the ball in the playoffs. He goes to the sideline. He's upset at himself. He throws his helmet and breaks it and cuts his hand up. And this is not even halftime. So then he's got to play the rest of the game with a cut up hand. And it's dude, he just he lost it. He lost control in the worst possible time. And people are oh, he's never going to be good again. Oh, he's terrible. It's he can definitely come back from this. He's not going to be dead forever. But I'm just a little concerned where can he ever outproduce this? He was wide receiver 31. This was without Mark Andrews for most of the year. The team is constantly praising Rashad Bateman, completely unprovoked this year. And maybe Bateman and Zay Flowers can be the 1-2 on this team, but are they ever going to get enough volume that they're going to be fantasy superstars? And I just don't know if that's going to be the case with this Baltimore Ravens team. I love Lamar, but he's not the kind of guy who's going to just pepper one guy outside of Mark Andrews, right?
Yeah. Well, I will say that it seemed like Zay Flowers was Jackson's safety blanket and is,
Right.
it's in the postseason and especially when he didn't have Andrews. So I think it's probably, I wouldn't say it's a ceiling, but it's probably generally pretty close.
Right.
You know, I can see him maybe going above maybe close to 1,000 yards, having, probably another, 85 receptions or something like that. I can see him doing that, but not like much more. But still, that's not a bad year.
No.
It's like, I would say that's probably a close to a wide receiver, like a top 24 year isn't bad.
He's right in line with JSN in terms of value. Tank Dell is right around him. T. Higgins is another guy. Xavier Worthy is right here. Who would you rather have, Zay Flowers or Xavier Worthy?
Zay Flowers.
I agree, actually. Jonathan Brooks is up here with him in value. Looking at the names that's around him, I almost think I'd rather just hold him.
Right.
But
No, but I feel there's people that are feeling really good about him, and that in if you're able to find that guy in your league,
yeah,
try to see if you can get a little bit extra for him,
like Tank
and
Dell
he's
or Zay Flowers. I think I'd rather have Tank. So if you can make that deal happen one for one,
probably barely over Tank.
You probably can't though, because I think people are way more in love with Tank Dell. But the biggest problem with Zay Flowers and his value right now is just that end of the season, man. It sticks in a lot of people's minds, and that's the last thing that they saw. So it just kind of sits with them. But I think that he's a good player. I think he's a very solid 2,
Yep.
or 3 for your team. But I just don't know if he ever has that elite potential to get up into the top 20. So
I would agree.
that's kind of where we're at with Zay Flowers. And, if it's a best ball league, I actually like Zay Flowers a lot, because you can see in his game log, right, where there's multiple games where he's just busting off like big runs, right? 75, 73, 78, 73, 60. Like, he is capable of very large weeks, right? 17 points, 18 points, 17, 23, 20, 22, 20. Like, he's very good at that, but then at the same time, in the middle there, 1.7, 8, 2.1, 6.9. Like, he's just got a lot of ups and a lot of downs. It's kind of boom or bust with Zay Flowers, which can be very good for best ball, right? So that's where he's a little bit more enticing. And again, he was a rookie, so maybe he can earn a little bit more role in this offense, and maybe you can bump him up, and he's closer to 24, and that's pretty good with the age and everything. Like, I like him. I think he's a very good player, but yeah, he scares me for his ceiling. All right, you want to introduce this next guy?
All right, it's the 23rd pick by the Minnesota Vikings, Jordan Addison.
Mm-hmm.
He had a fantastic year. I mean, besides Pua Nakuka,
Puka? What? Pua? Who the hell is
Pua.
Pua?
Hey man, it's been a long week. It is.
What in the
Yes,
world?
I'm gonna keep going on. All right,
All
people.
right,
Okay.
Jordan Addison, take 2.
Yes, yeah. Jordan Addison, great year. Like he was 70 for
911.
yeah,
10
911
touchdowns. Wow.
there,
I
10
didn't realize
10
he had 10 touchdowns.
touchdowns. Yeah, he had a fantastic year. I think he really benefited because of a lot of injuries on the Vikings, unfortunately,
Yeah, he played a lot without Justin
with
Jefferson, right?
and TJ Hawkinson.
And TJ. Yeah.
And
So,
TJ Hawkinson I think Hawkinson got hurt towards the end of the year.
right.
So he really benefited from that. Well, in some games, like at the end of the year, like with the Detroit game, he kind of dudded out after he had a 30-point game. But you know, um,
Right. In your playoffs, too.
yeah, yes, yeah, in your playoffs, of course. But yeah, but I don't think he's gonna get near the touchdowns.
No.
It's going to be really rough, and I don't know if people are ready for that.
Yeah.
With
So,
with
of,
good old JJ McCarthy coming.
yeah, for all the guys, we've talked about so far, all the first round, because he's the last first round wide receiver from last year. He is the biggest sell target to me right now, and it's not for a lack of talent. It's more for a lack of opportunity. You've got Justin Jefferson. They're going to pay this dude like $40 million a year.
Bunch of money, yeah.
Justin Jefferson is going to get paid so much money. And it's because they have Jay McCarthy, because they did not want to pay Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is a much better quarterback than J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy is going to be fine. Like, he's not going to be bad, but he's not going to be able to sustain 3 amazing fantasy options. And then you add Aaron Jones in, right, who comes over from Green Bay, who is a pass catching specialist out of the backfield. And like we always say, the running back is the rookie quarterback's best friend because they like to dump it off short. I just think that Aaron Jones, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson's going to come out a little bit slow because of the ACL tear and everything, but he'll be back and rolling. So you're talking about the number 2, 3, or 4 with a rookie quarterback, and long term, like after this year, right? Let's say they get through this year and Jordan Addison is the number 2.5 target, right? Next year they're probably going to add another running back that can be pass friendly towards JJ McCarthy, or they re-sign Aaron Jones or whatever. But next year also, TJ Hawkinson is going to be a year removed from the injury, and he'll be back to being the number 2 target in this offense behind Justin Jefferson. So it's like, at best, Jordan Addison is always going to be the number 3 guy, and I think he's just massively overvalued right now.
Yeah, no, I very much agree with that. I would be trying to. I mean, I do agree, and of the guys we talked about so far, he's the one I would be selling the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think he's going to get. He will not be wide receiver.
Right, he's ranked at 25 right now. So.
Yes.
He's ranked 1 spot behind Zay Flowers, who we literally just talked about. And,
right.
The biggest thing, again, we talked about this last year with the rookies. We said, I could see JSN and Quentin Johnston starting a little bit slow because of who they have in front of them and the situations and all that stuff. We literally said the one guy we would want to buy right now if we needed to win right now would be Jordan Addison. And, it looks like we were right. Puka Nacua, you could make the case that we were wrong on that one, but a lot of people were, so we weren't alone there. But Jordan Addison, we knew the whole time that he had the best situation in front of him. And then that was without a Justin Jefferson injury, right? You couple that with TJ Hawkinson, Justin Jefferson going down, and it's like, this dude is just set up to succeed, right? And I'm cashing out. Like, yeah, thank you for that amazing rookie year. Now, give me my chips. I want out.
Do you feel like do you feel the 108 is a fair value for him?
So 108. So you're talking Brian Thomas Jr. or Jordan Addison. Who would you rather have? Ladd McConkey, Brian Thomas, and
I would rather have Jordan Addison.
I'd rather have Brian Thomas or Ladd McConkey
really?
or.
Really?
Yeah, just because I think the opportunity's there. I think that, again, maybe not Brian Thomas Jr. for year 1 because of the whole Gabe Davis thing, but again, Christian Kirk is a free agent next year. So there's the potential that if he's good enough, they can make it a Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr. backfield or receiving core, which would be fun to watch for all the haters. But
yeah, interesting, yes.
Like we already talked about with Ladd McConkey, though, like, I like Quentin Johnston. I'm not ready to completely write off Quentin Johnston yet, but it's entirely possible Ladd McConkey is the number 1 wide receiver on this team. Like, in a year's time, if you told me that, I would not be shocked. So you're trading Jordan Addison, who's the number 2/4 on this team, for the number 1 on the Chargers with Justin Herbert, who's a better quarterback than J.J. McCarthy. Yeah, okay. All right, sure. Or you could get, at the 108, you could get, if it's Superflex, that's where you could get, even J.J. McCarthy, who I'd rather have than Jordan Addison in a super flex, or, like a Brock Bowers or Drake May or whoever's that 8th guy that falls, because there's 4 quarterbacks, 3 receivers, and a tight end that are elite in this class, in my opinion, before the teardrop. So, yeah, I'd be willing to move Jordan Addison for the 8.
Hey, that's fair. I think I feel like I can get a smidge more because of what he did last year, but I know a lot of people are fear
Like,
or are going on camp stories. Like we've already had a couple reports, like a couple days where JJ McCarthy's been on the struggle bus. So
yeah.
I'm not again. That
So
doesn't
is
like
Caleb though. So.
concern me. Yeah, yeah. It doesn't concern me yet, but like we're seeing some stuff come up
Right.
of what's going on. So it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, no, again, so here's a question. You think you can get a little bit more for him? Would you rather have Jordan Addison or Rome Odunze?
I would. Ooh,
I'd
I
rather
think I
have
would
Rome
probably.
by far,
Yeah,
but
I would rather have Rome. Yeah, I'd rather have Rome.
I think you could get that trade done though.
I think
And
you could too. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Like we're thinking like the 106.
right.
That's it's a 105, 106 is kind of what we're thinking.
Like
So that's
again,
yeah.
you can sell last year on him like, hey, dude, look what he did as a rookie. 70 catches for 900 yards and 10 touchdowns. This dude is a monster. Like if he did that as a rookie, just wait until year 2, right? He's going to have 15
Well,
touchdowns.
and two, I feel you can sell them on the TJ Hawkinson injury,
Oh yeah.
and that
Oh yeah.
like you're able to sell them on that. You can
Yep.
sell them on, JJ maybe holding out for a contract and stuff like that. So
Yeah. Like, dude, Justin Jefferson, I've heard that they're going to trade him,
right,
It's
yeah,
rumored that they're going to trade him.
true.
So, yeah, you could definitely get that done. I think if you were smooth enough in the trades. Now, try and be smooth, guys. Don't just be blunt with you got to
Yeah,
play it up a
yeah,
little bit. You got to play it up. But if you could get Rome for Jordan Addison, dude,
all
that would
day,
be a smash for me. So,
all day.
that's how I kind of feel about that. All right, let's go to the next guy here. We're done with you, Jordan Addison. We're going to go to Jonathan Mingo.
I would rather be done with him too.
All right, we're done with
Yeah,
Jonathan Mingo. Of the top 8 guys, he's the only one. He's like the only one I don't want to talk about just because I
yeah.
don't
I'm not excited
care.
about him. I think it's the biggest. He had a pretty lackluster season last year. So did the whole Panthers as a team. It was pretty pathetic. He had
Yeah,
43 catches on 85 targets.
yeah. I
Not a
mean,
very not a very good percentage for
no.
418, 0 tutties.
Yeah, I mean, the whole
Like it's
Panthers
not
offense was terrible, and some of that goes on Bryce Young. Bryce Young was not great last year, but neither
no,
was
he was
Jonathan
up bad.
Mingo. Like equally, neither was Jonathan Mingo. When you're getting beat out by 38-year-old Adam Thielen, that's not a
Old
good
man Adam
sign.
Adam Thielen.
And, you couple that with the fact that the team traded for Deontay Johnson. They
Yep.
traded up to get Xavier Legette for his 5th-year contract. So maybe you got like 4 years until he's valuable for fantasy, but they still have Adam Thielen. So all of a sudden, you are now the number 4 option. They still have they drafted Jonathan Brooks, Chuba Hubbard, Miles Sanders. Those guys were actually very utilized in the passing game last year. This whole offense is built around Bryce Young, which I respect. I respect what the Panthers have done. They have said,
Agreed.
Bryce, here you go. Here's your weapons. We have 85 of them. Who knows for fantasy which one's the one you want to have? Deontay is kind of the only one that I'm banking on, him and Jonathan Brooks long term. But they brought in Jatavion Sanders, the Texas tight end that we really liked, right? So they have loaded this offense up with weapons. Jonathan Mingo, you're not even in the top 5, so I'm kind of out, right?
Yeah, it's a brand new coaching staff on a bad team. I think the Panthers are going to be better this year. Like they almost have to be. Just
Dude, if
be
they're not,
if they're not, there's going to be a lot of problems. So
record-wise, they
yeah,
might not be, but if they can at least be fun to watch, it'd be
right.
nice.
At least watchable. But
Right.
but it's for Jonathan Mingo. I wasn't excited about him in the pre-draft process after he got drafted
He
as high
got
as he
hyped up
did.
like crazy at the end of last year's draft cycle.
So high, so high. And I didn't see it, and
Yeah.
I'd rather have a bag of chips than
I
Jonathan
think it
Mingo.
was just because he was big, dude. Like last year was so many slot guys, and this guy's 6'2", 220. Like he's the prototypical X receiver. They needed that long term, and it's like, oh, might as well take him. But it didn't work out. So yeah, he's currently wide receiver 86, which is really bad, really really bad. So yeah. If anybody wants to, you can send a 4th round pick for Jonathan Mingo, and if he ends up being something, But I'm not excited. I'm out. You're out on
OUT out.
you're
I'm
out
out.
on QJ. I'm out on Mingo. Like, dude, I never had a
Absolutely.
single share of him, and I am happy.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go to the next guy. We'll speed that one up a little bit. Jayden Reed, the surprising, I would say, second round pick last year by Green Bay. I don't even think we talked about him in the pre-draft
We
cycle.
really didn't. We really did not. And he was, drafted in the second round by the Green Bay Packers, who really have a good history of hitting on these second round wide receivers, oddly enough.
Yeah.
Because they're too scared to draft a first round wide receiver. Beside the point.
I
But
mean, Pittsburgh does the same thing, to be fair.
hey, no, I get it. I get it. But yeah, but him and Jordan Love had a really solid connection. He was
Mm-hmm.
he had 64 receptions on 94 targets, almost 800 yards and 8 touchdowns.
Yeah, and that's with limited play too. He it was only 16 games right there. And then, multiple games where he was under 50% snaps, 48, 39, 47, 42, 31. So that's 5 games right there out of the 16 where he was under 50% snaps. So I think that there's a lot of potential here. So let me ask you a question. Are you interested in Jayden Reed? Because the problem with Jayden Reed is this offense is insanely loaded with Jordan Love. Like, there's Romeo Doubs, whatever you want to say. There's Christian Watson still, and there's Dontavian Wicks, who we might talk about in part 2 of this breakdown. But there's just a lot of guys. Then you got both tight ends.
There is a lot of guys. Yes, that is a problem. But I think of the guys that you listed, I want Jayden Reed the most. I don't want Christian Watson. He's too injury prone.
Dude, I'm actually kind of interested in him now because his prices come down like crazy.
Oh,
like
I
Christian,
agree. I definitely hear that, but like I don't like trying to get injured players.
Did you hear, real quick, did you hear about Christian Watson? So he's had all these hamstring issues, right? Yep. So he went to a specialist to try and figure out what was going on, why he's having all these. They found out that his right hamstring, which is the one that he's having all these problems with, the mass of his right leg is 20% less than his left leg. 20%. Like, his right leg weighed a fifth less than his left leg.
That's a lot.
That is a ton, dude.
That's pretty significant.
That's like that could actually, so it's down to like, he's got it down to like 7% now instead of 20. Right. It's still a little bit smaller than his left leg, but it's like, dude, that overcompensation might actually explain why you're having so many hamstring issues. And if you can fix that, like, dude, if you could tell me you had healthy Christian Watson for a whole year, that dude would be insane.
Yeah, it could be. I'm not a big fan of Christian. I never really.
I think he's just an extreme play. Like, he's such a explosive player.
He is. He's very much an athlete, and I can appreciate that. But I want guys that catch the ball and compete on the field.
Right.
You know. So I think of the guys you listed, I want Jayden Reed the most. I feel he has a really good rapport with Jordan Love, who's going to be there probably for the vast majority of his career, and then get traded to the Jets
until he goes to the Hall of Fame.
True. So with him finishing wide receiver 25, I think that's I wouldn't say that's a ceiling by any means, but that's still not bad. Like, that's a pretty solid, like wide receiver. Well, I don't say wide receiver, but like your wide receiver 3 on your team. Like, I would feel comfortable with that.
He's ranked as wide receiver 35, and I'm just looking at all the. Christian Watson is 44. I know Dubs is way lower, 59. So, and Wicks is 54. Dude, Dubs is the cheapest out of all these guys. That's actually kind of crazy. Yeah, I like Jayden Reed. Again, I think I'm most in on Christian Watson just because of cost. You get him cheaper and you have the potential more upside in Christian Watson just because, again, when Christian Watson played last year, he was extremely valuable for fantasy. So it's like, if he's out there, he's good, but he's not out there a lot, right? And that was kind of the biggest problem.
And I would much rather have the consistency of Jayden Reed.
Sure.
He was. I mean, they're like
he had a few down weeks, but every receiver does, right?
Yeah, and that's going to happen. But he was over double digits most of the year
Yeah, I
and
mean, especially after the
it was
bye,
pretty
right?
solid.
With
Yeah.
being a
Yeah.
rookie coming after the bye, like you look at the
Yeah.
bye, and again, these aren't amazing weeks, but 11 points, 12 points, 7, 19, 19, 15,
They're solid.
7.
There's hey, for it's for a rookie wide receiver that, in fantasy football, like we're like overloaded with all these wide receivers.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
like that's pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's solid. And again, I think he's cheap enough, right? Where
Yeah.
at wide receiver 34, he finished at 25, so there's some potential upside there. So I like him. I'm with you. I would be interested in buying him. I just think I'd rather have Watson over him, but
That's fair.
I don't think
Fair.
that Jayden Reed I don't think that makes Jayden Reed a bad buy, if that makes sense. So I'd buy them both. I think
Yep.
that they're the only downside is, again, it's so deep that I could see 1 week being Jayden Reed, 1 week being Christian Watson,
A
1 week
Watson
being
week.
Dubs,
Yeah.
1 week
No,
being
I don't disagree with that, but
right.
that's what we play when we get in these wide receiver rooms.
Yeah, for sure. For
So
sure. It's a good problem to have for Green Bay fans, man. Like everyone thought that,
100%.
they're getting rid of Aaron Rodgers. They're going to be bad for a little while. These other
Wrong.
teams. Nope.
Wrong.
Dude, you just cannot get rid of the Packers. You
No, you
cannot.
can't.
That honestly, I think the NFC North might be the most fun division this upcoming year.
It's gonna be wild.
NFC North and the Norths, man. AFC and NFC North, dude. It's going to be fun.
It's gonna be wild.
All right, let's go to the next guy here, and it's going to be Rashee Rice. Guy that he has had the worst offseason of any player in recent memory. Like, the dude is just, he cannot get out of his own way. Had a good rookie year with Patrick Mahomes. When was he drafted? He was drafted 224 by KC. So 24th pick in the second round by Kansas City. Started off a little slow, but started to really pick it up after their bye. Became kind of a primary target for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, and you saw that a lot going into the playoffs as well. He was very, very valuable for the team. He's a Super Bowl champion, Rashee Rice is, and everyone was very excited about him going into year 2. He had 79 catches for 938 yards, 7 touchdowns, and as a rookie, when you're really starting to get more playtime after the bye in the second half, the sky is the limit for this guy, right? And then what happens? The dude just gets into an illegal street race where he causes a massive pileup in Dallas, and he gets filmed getting out of the car, running from the scene, which is not a great look. The NFL might suspend him. We have no idea. Then gets into a fight with a guy, but the guy dropped the charges, meaning that Rashee Rice and the team has probably paid this guy very handsomely. But it's just thing after thing. And, I remember the time when the NFL suspended Ezekiel Elliott for rumors of things he was doing off the field, not literal photographs of him doing things on the street, right?
Correct.
Street racing and causing, like, that car flipped up in the air. That video was nuts. The fact that the NFL hasn't suspended him yet is crazy. But
I think the moral of the story is that you need to hire a professional driver, and you need to do those things in a
dude,
like it's fine to race and have fun and all that, but like you need to do it safely, and like you need to think logically, because you are valuable to a lot of other people.
it's
And
stupid, man. Like,
yeah,
how
yeah,
did people not learn from Henry Ruggs?
yeah, it's just being, yeah, exactly. It's just being irresponsible.
Like, he could have, if someone would have died there, dude be going to prison forever, like for the rest of his life, like Henry Ruggs. Like, it's not worth. Like, it's not worth it. It's stupid. It's not worth it. But
yeah, so all of that aside, like we're talking about fantasy football,
right.
what do you want to do if you're the Rice?
I think you have to just hold him, man. Like, the problem is his
Yep.
value is just completely tanked, and
It's weird. It's like it's gone, like it was really high after the Super Bowl, then tanked after the
Right.
accident, then it's gone up a little bit, tanked. Like it's all over the place.
yeah, he was pretty high. I think he peaked at like wide receiver 18. Now he's kind of dropped off a little bit as wide receiver number 38. So big drop off. He's valued at the 201 to 202, which I think he's kind of a buy personally. And,
I would agree on that.
I'm trashing the guy. And unless the NFL comes down with something completely crazy where they put him on like the commissioner's exempt list and they stop him from playing football for an undetermined amount of time, which I think if they were going to do that, they would have done it already. Who knows with the NFL? It's entirely possible that they could do it tomorrow, and we have no idea. But I think if they were gonna do that, they would have done it before the training camp and the OTAs started. So the fact that they haven't done it yet, I think that he's going to get a suspension, but I think it's going to be like a 6-game suspension. It's going to be a little bit heavier.
I'm thinking 4 to 6 games. That's
I think
all
it's going to be. I think it's
speculation.
going to be 6. Like the standard for fighting and stuff is like 4, but like because it was so publicized, I think that's why it's going to be a little bit more heavy-handed. They're going to come down and say like, we're not going to stand for this stuff. So like I could see like 8 games that they reduce down to 6 is what I'm kind of anticipating. So, let's say Rashee Rice misses 6 games at the start of this year, or, knowing the NFL, the way they drag their feet, it could be the start of 2025. What are you valuing him at that point if he's missing 6 games? I think he's still a good buy.
I still think he is too. I think if you're the quote unquote wide receiver 1 on a potential on a soon to be Hall of Famer team, like
Future
you're
Hall of Famer with Patrick Mahomes.
Hall of Famer. I think, I don't know how much better his stats will be because Mahomes likes to throw it all around the yard, and stuff like that. So,
but I don't think they've had a true number 1
yes,
in a while. That's the biggest thing.
since Tyreek, and
Right.
I think it's going to help with having Xavier Worthy there to kind of be a decoy on some stuff
And
to kind of
Hollywood.
open, in Hollywood, and that's going to help open stuff up, but it also takes a little bit of that opportunity away. So
Potentially,
I think it's going to level out, and I think he's going to be kind of ranked where he's at. Like finish where he's at, I should say. As a fringe wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, which still isn't bad, and for what the cost is now at 201, like that's
right.
That's a pretty good price.
Like, would you rather have
that.
Ricky Pearsall or Rashee Rice?
Rashee Rice.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I think that his value is tanked a little bit too low. So for me, he's a buy, even with the unknowns of the suspension and all that stuff. And again, I do think he will get suspended, but who knows for what or how long or anything like that. But again, I think that when he's on the field, he's going to be very good. The team still trusts him. They've kind of come out and like supported him a little bit and everything. So, I think that they're not going to just completely disregard this kid and punish him on the field, right? And take away targets and things like that. So I think that the opportunity is still going to be there when he gets back. Maybe he's going to be a little bit sluggish if he gets suspended and everything. Like maybe he's not going to be hitting the gym as hard as he should be and all those things. But again, I think he'll be just fine for fantasy football. So I'm willing to buy him, but dude, one more story and I'm like, I'm out.
I'm out. Yeah.
Like there's just too much smoke there. But
I agree with.
For now, I think it's just too. It's probably one really stupid decision, and then some guy at a club got in his face, and he just probably snapped a little bit and needs to get his head right. So,
yep.
I'm not going to completely write this kid off, but I'm already like 1 foot out the door, So,
Agreed.
All right, we're going to talk about the last guy here, Marvin Mims. Marvin Mims, 22 years old, rough first year with the Denver Broncos, but the Denver Broncos had a rough first year. Recapping last year, trade a first round pick for Sean Payton. Everyone says, Sean Payton's going to save Russell Wilson. Did not save Russell Wilson. And I think that this offense was terrible with Russell Wilson. It was very, very bad. They draft Marvin Mims in the second round. They did not want to play him like ever at all. They played him on special teams a lot, and he never broke 50% except for 2 games the entire year. He never had more than 3 targets except for 2 games where he had 4 and 5 in those 2 games. Like the dude just never was used. And You pair that with Russell Wilson being bad in this offense and the target volume, it's not looking good for Marvin Mims. But that said, they draft Bo Nix in the first round. They trade away Jerry Jeudy, and all of a sudden, things have opened up a lot for Marvin Mims. So they draft Troy Franklin in round 4, but a lot later than people kind of anticipate. Cortland Sutton is kind of wanting out, but he's not all the way out yet. They bring in Josh Reynolds. They bring in quite a few guys, but still have Tim Patrick coming back, ripping peps, Tim Patrick. But what are we feeling about Marvin Mims right now?
It's a little weird what's going on in Denver. I honestly felt that Russell Wilson played decent last year.
He played
Um,
decent for
I I
fantasy.
I, I mean, I can be in the minority. Like I thought, I like, and that's fine.
It's because you
I
love
didn't.
Cortland Sutton and he was getting touchdowns every week.
He was touched all day, man. But it's weird what's going on over there. I don't really know how to read Marvin Mims
Mm-hmm.
and what his stuff is going to be. He only got 22 receptions left.
I know, dude.
That's
You only got
and like
33
and
targets.
33
Like,
targets. Yeah. Yeah, but on almost 400 yards.
I
So
know,
like
it's crazy. Like
it's weird.
you look at this. If you're watching on YouTube, right? We have the sleeper up, and it's like red for targets, red for receptions, red for yardage, green for yards per target, green for yards per catch, red for touchdowns. It's like,
Yeah, it was a weird year, and
yeah,
I almost feel there has to be an uptick with that, and is Sean Payton's first pick or first draft pick
yeah,
from his stint with Denver. So
yep.
that does mean a little bit of something, whether that's I don't know what that something is, but I wouldn't be surprised if they try to move off of Cortland Sutton this year.
He could be
And
like a trade deadline target, for
yeah,
some
that's
teams.
kind of what I think. And then there's the ghost of Tim Patrick.
Yeah.
Um,
Coming off an
and then
Achilles tear, I think he's probably done, guys. But
R.I.P. Tim Patrick. But yeah. Then after that, there's nobody else there.
right,
There's Troy Franklin and Josh Reynolds, but like that doesn't excite me. And
right.
Marvin Mims excites me a little bit, but not. He intrigues me.
Yeah, he's the deep
Intrigues me.
threat, obviously, for this
He
team.
is. He
And
is.
Troy Franklin's probably more the underneath guy.
Yep.
But man, Bo Nix, I think, is going to be very good. I really like Bo Nix in this offense. I don't think he's going to be elite Patrick Mahomes, but I think he's going to be a very solid, serviceable player, right? And I think that he's going to be good. I think he's going to be solid, right? Probably averaging around 275 a game, 250 to 275, probably adding like 50 on the ground with his legs. That's going to be the baseline for Bo Nix this year. Marvin Mims, man, all he needs is like 3-4 catches because he's the deep threat, and we've seen it. He can just pop off and just explode. So I like him. His value is insanely low. And really quickly, before we get to the value, I was just looking again on Sleeper. It does have his kick return yards and his punt return yards. A lot of these guys weren't used on special teams, but man, you just see that speed and that explosiveness. Like he's very Devin Hester-ish, right? In terms of his return ability. He had no touchdowns, unfortunately. Like that's where the Hester comparison ends, right? Because Hester would get touchdowns like every other play on special teams, but 15 kick returns for 400 yards, so very productive when it came to the kickoff, and then 19 punt returns for 300 yards as well. So he was getting work done on special teams. You want to see a little bit of that transition over to, regular play. He was
The
getting
offensive side of the ball.
right. He was getting used, is all I want to say, in special teams. So it's not like the team completely disregarded this kid. They knew that they have a special talent. We just want to see him utilize it more on the offensive side of the ball, right?
Yeah.
But now his value, he is ranked as wide receiver number 76. He's estimated as like a 4th rounder, which again,
I would just I don't like always getting these roster cloggers. I've been victim of that where like a couple years ago when like Devontae Parker was a thing in New England. I
right.
traded a third for him. Like Van Jefferson last year. Like it's these guys that we're trading these third, fourth round picks for that aren't going to do very much.
Right.
And And that's my worry for Marvin Mims. I see it. I see a path,
Hmm.
and he's very talented. From what I saw last year, I mean, it just didn't look good.
Fair enough, but that's where it's like. So, would you rather have Audric Estime, who was drafted in the 5th round, running back for the same team, or Marvin Mims?
I would probably rather take the chance on Mims.
That's one. So, with the value of him, I just think that he's a roster clogger. But any 4th round pick you take is probably a roster clogger as well. So, of roster cloggers, I'd rather take a chance on him, where I know that if it doesn't happen this year, I'm booting him, right? Whereas Estime, you got to wait 2 years before you find out, because next year they're going to get rid of Javonte. Then you got to find out if Estime is going to be good or not. So you're just kind of speeding up that timeline of, this guy's good, I'll know. If he's bad, all right, see ya. All right, so that's the last guy. We're going to break down the rest of these receivers. There's so many more in the next one. But you've got some superstars like Tank Dell. You've got Puka. You've got Josh Downs, Michael Wilson, one of my favorites. Some of these guys that we're going to talk about. And then you've got some sneaky potential ads, Parker Washington, Trey Palmer. That'll be coming early next week after the holiday. Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate it. And yeah, there's just so many young receivers that you love to talk about. So let us know your thoughts down below in the comments. And yeah, hopefully you guys all have a pretty good holiday weekend. Dale, any last thoughts here?
Send it on home.
All right, well, that said, again, have a good weekend, everybody. Happy holidays. And until next time, have a good night.
And we all got dreams, we all want things, but what you gonna do for it? How you gonna move for it? What you gonna be?